Have you ever tried to look at a cybersecurity report? I mean, it's usually just this wall of technical jargon and code that can be super intimidating, right? But what if I told you that being able to read one of these is like learning an insider skill? Come on, let's dive in and decode one of these things together. Okay, I know, at first glance this just looks like a total mess, but I want you to think of it like a detective's case file. It's absolutely packed with cryptic clues about a potential digital crime scene. And our job, it's to follow those clues, piece together the story, and crack the case. You know, every single one of these vulnerability reports tells a story about a weakness in a system. You just have to know where to look. So let's start with part 1 and break down the anatomy of this digital crime scene. So when a security analyst gets a report like this, their very first job is to cut right through all the noise. They need to answer one simple, fundamental question. What is the actual problem here? What did the scanner find? Well, the answer is usually right there in the description section. And this one tells us that the server is using old, really insecure versions of a security protocol called SSL. You know, the thing that's supposed to encrypt internet traffic. Using that old, outdated version, that's our problem right there. Okay, so we've got the problem nailed down. But honestly, that's only half the battle. The next logical question has to be, what do we do about it? How do we fix this thing? And thankfully, a good report doesn't just leave you hanging. The solution section gives us a really clear, actionable instruction. Stop using the old SSL stuff and switch to the modern secure standard, which is called TLS. Problem found, solution right there. Easy enough. But here's the million-dollar question. An organization might have dozens, maybe hundreds of these vulnerabilities. So how on earth do you decide which one to fix first? We need some way to measure the danger. How bad is this really? The report gives us a little clue here in the risk information section. It's got a general category, high, but you know, high can mean different things to different people. To really prioritize, we need a standardized score, and that's where a system called CVSS comes into play. So that brings us to our second section, scoring the danger. We need a universal way to talk about this, and for that, the entire industry uses something called the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or just CVSS. Think of CVS as the Richter scale for cybersecurity threats. Seriously, it's this universal, open standard that lets everyone, everywhere, speak the exact same language when they're talking about how bad a vulnerability is. And what's really cool is how this whole complex scoring system, it really just boils down to answering these two fundamental questions. First, exploitability. How easy is it for a bad guy to actually use this weakness? And second, impact. If they do get in, how much damage can they cause? Alright, so how do we actually get from those big ideas, exploitability and impact, to a real hard number that we can actually use to decide what to fix first? First, to figure out the exploitability, the system looks at a few key things. The attack vector is all about how they get in. Is it over the network from anywhere, or do they need to be physically in the building? Attack complexity is, well, how hard is it to pull off? Do they need special privileges, like a username and password, a key to the door? And finally, do they need user interaction, like tricking a real person into clicking a bad link? Next up, impact. This measures the damage across three main categories. First, confidentiality. Can the attacker steal secret information? Then there's integrity. Can they actually change or delete your data? And finally, availability. Can they just shut the whole service down, making it unavailable to everyone? So you take all those factors we just talked about, they get rated, and then they're all combined into this, a CVSS vector string. I know, it looks like absolute gibberish, like a line of code from a sci-fi movie. But it's actually just a shorthand summary of all those ratings. See the AV/N, that just means the attack vector is network. Each little piece is just part of the puzzle. But here is the best part, the big secret. You don't have to understand that code, because that complex string is just a piece of data that you plug into a simple online calculator. You feed it the vector string, and it does all the hard math for you. And boom! The calculator takes that long string of gibberish and spits out one single, simple number. For the vulnerability that we've been looking at this whole time, the score is 8.4. So what in the world does 8.4 even mean? Well, a score of 8.4 puts our vulnerabilities squarely in the high severity category. And hey, you'll notice that matches the general rating from our original scan report. But now we have a standardized number to actually back it up. But hold on, the job is not done. A number is just a number, and while that score is a powerful guide, it is never a command. This is where the experience and intuition of a human analyst becomes absolutely critical. You have to remember, these scans are all done by automated tools, and we use them because they are unbelievably powerful and efficient. But they are not perfect. They aren't human, and they can, and they absolutely do, make mistakes. There are two main types of errors an analyst is always on the lookout for. A false positive is like the smoke alarm going off because you burnt some toast. It's annoying, but there's no real fire. But then there's the much more dangerous one, a false negative. That's when there is a real fire in the house and the smoke alarm stays silent. And then there's another layer to this whole thing. Sometimes a business will know about a vulnerability, even one with a high score, and they'll decide not to fix it. It's called an accepted risk. For example, a high-risk bug on a test server with no real data might be less important fix than a medium-risk bug on the company's main public-facing website. It's all about context. Which brings us to our final, and maybe most important question. After everything we've looked at, the report, the score, the human element, is the vulnerability with the biggest, scariest number always the one you should fix first? Or does the real-world context of business needs and cost mean that the true priority is something a simple number can never quite tell you? That's where the real work of cybersecurity begins.